Welcome to Page One, the award-winning show for writers with the reader in mind.
That draws the reader along, just like fiction.
Here's your host and producer, Zita Christian.
Hi everyone, welcome to Page One. I'm Zita Christian. I'm doing something a little different tonight. It's exciting. I'm admittedly a little bit nervous. So I asked a friend of mine, Ron Winter, who has been a guest on the show before, multi-published author, nominated finalist for a Pulitzer. He is joining me on the show tonight to help me talk about my new book. So, Ron, thanks for being on the show. Thanks for helping me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you. I'm actually starting to get to be a bit of a habit being here. It seems like it was only yesterday.
It was only yesterday,
Oh,
yes.
that's right.
Yes.
Had to do that.
Excellent.
So we have some exciting news about your book, First and
Yes.
Forever. And we would like to share that with the Page One viewers. And the best way I can see to do that is to do a little role reversal here, and
Okay.
I'll interview you, and you can tell all the viewers just what's going on with your book.
Thank you. That sounds good.
Go for it.
All right. Well, First and Forever is actually my second novel, and it is about German immigrants homesteading on the Dakota Territory in the year between 1887 and 1888. And I chose that one because that was that year of that horrible, horrible blizzard, and I needed that to play into the story. But it is about homesteading, and I have to admit I took a little bit of literary license because my grandparents, William and Catherine Winterberg, did homestead out in that Dakota Territory, but not until 1910. But so
Odds were the weather wasn't that much better in 1910.
Yeah, no, probably
than it
wasn't. No.
So you had a bit of a model to get started on your novel. How did you flesh out the idea for where you wanted to take it?
Well, it all started. You know how, I don't know if you find this when you're working on a story, but this incident happened when I was about 9 or 10, and it kind of went into the percolator, or the little crock pot in my creative mind, and sat there and sat there and sat there, and eventually became the story. So what it was when I was a kid, I had two younger sisters, and we were very close. And we were born and raised in the Tidewater area of Virginia. Mm-hmm. My dad, who was born out in the Dakota Territory, had joined the Navy. And so he was now stationed in Virginia, and that's why we all wound up there, my sisters and I. In the summers, he would take his 30 days leave, and we would go up through Pennsylvania for a couple of days, see one set of grandparents, and then we would go out for about 3 weeks to South Dakota. And we would stay out there on my grandparents' farm and, learn a whole lot of things that little kids from the city just, never learn. And I remember being out there one day, and my dad had told me one time this story about how my grandfather wanted to offer my grandmother this opportunity to go back to Missouri, where she came from, see her family, but particularly her younger sister, Lizzie, and they were very close. So you have a farm, you have a ranch, and a lot of cattle. You can't just walk off and leave.
Now, how long had been the separation, your grandmother and her sister? Did they see each other regularly? Or?
Oh, no.
So this was a big deal.
It was a huge deal, yeah. They probably, well, I don't know prior to that point, but it was probably at least 10 years in between,
okay.
If not more. So the day came, and my dad was a kid at the time, and this was a big deal. I mean, this was like something you planned for a couple years.
They didn't have email.
They didn't have no email. I don't even know that they had phones back then.
Probably not.
I don't think so, because this would have been in the 1930s, if not the late 20s.
Yeah.
And I don't think they even had electricity out where they lived.
That's quite possible.
We're way out on a prairie. So the family got together, that made the decision, the plan. My grandfather hired this hired hand who was going to come and stay out at the farm, and he would take care of the animals for that month or so, 6 weeks while they were gone. I remember my dad telling me that Everybody got ready to go. The kids were all excited. My dad was one of 6. My grandmother had packed all these sandwiches and the wax paper, carefully cut.
Oh, sure.
It's going to be used again and again.
Yeah.
You know it is, and it's going to be put in sacks. And there was the thermos.
The thermos. Had to have the
important thermos. The one for my grandfather would have the super strong coffee. There might be milk in the others, maybe just water. And the water from the well out there was, so good.
Yeah.
So good. So they were all ready to go, and the car's all packed up. And I don't think this car went more than 30 miles an hour. We're talking a long time ago. But everybody was excited. And that morning, my grandfather found the hired hand in the barn, and he was drunk.
In the morning?
In the morning.
He couldn't even wait till the evening?
No, in the morning. And my grandfather said, I can't leave the farm in this man's care.
Yeah.
I mean, that's... It's not good business. It's not good ethics. I mean, you don't do that to animals. You just simply don't do that. So I asked my dad, well, what did you do? And he said, well, we unpacked everything and, put everything away. And I'm thinking, well, okay, so then, my grandfather will hire somebody else and they'll go a couple days from now or whatever. Well, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Not at all. Yeah. And my dad explained to me how that wasn't going to happen. And I said, well, did Graham ever get down to Missouri to see her sister Lizzie and family? And he said, oh yeah, but it was a while. And I said, well, how long? How long did she wait? And he said, oh golly, he said, I bet it was a good 20 years.
Wow.
20 years to be separated, from your sister. So
on top of the original 10.
Yes.
Sure.
So this is in my mind. And then this particular summer, I was standing in the little kitchen area where there was a china cabinet. And I'd always heard the superstition about a crack in the glass of a china cabinet bringing bad luck, okay, which I used in the book. So here's this cracked glass. And I said to my grandmother, I said, this, is an indication of bad luck. Now, I'm like 9 or 10 years old. I don't know if I shouldn't be saying something like that. And I said something to her about something in the china cabinet. And she said something about it being from her sister Lizzie. And I said, does Lizzie come here to visit? Because we came, every summer. Does Lizzie come to visit? My grandmother just started crying, like sudden tears, and she left the room. I've never seen my grandmother do something like that. I knew I had done something awful, but I didn't know what. And it was in talking about it with my dad afterwards that, he explained that whole situation, and I thought, I triggered such a horrible, painful memory for her. But for the writer,
is perfect.
I thought,
you've got material.
This is emotional.
Little kids do that, though. They don't have social graces.
No,
they're not supposed to. They're children.
Yeah, well, but so eventually, my grandmother said, no, it was fine, and but the incident stayed in my mind, and as I got older, I thought, what if, because that's what writers do, what if there's a story about 2 sisters. I decided not to make it 3 just for the economy of the plot. 2 sisters. And what would happen if circumstances forced them to separate? And I took that component, plus the fact that for my grandmother, her family had come from a very wealthy a royal family in Prussia before it was unified as Germany. And they moved here, and my grandfather brought with him what he considered a value, and those were all his library in Latin and Greek. And let me tell you, there was no call for the library in Latin and Greek. So, he had to learn, some other kind of skill. So here was my grandmother, whose family had been used to a certain kind of lifestyle, and now there was nothing. So I thought, okay, so what if I take that piece of information, and then I take the fact that some circumstance has to happen where she's out on this prairie. The circumstances are totally fiction. To my grandmother's memory, I have to say that. But that's where the idea came from. And you know how it is. A lot of writers will always ask you, where do you get your ideas? And other than, like Poughkeepsie or something, I look for something. Sometimes it just comes from the air. But in this case, it was a specific incident.
And it was something you actually could build on. Take the reality and just, like you say, take the what if and change a little bit. Did you feel a sense of loyalty to your grandparents to tell a story that was, as you point out, it's a historical romance novel, so Did you, as you wrote it, did you have that sense of being true to the life they lived?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much so. And I had a meeting with the publisher of South Dakota Magazine one time down in Yankton, and we had a great conversation. When the book came out, I had gone out there to South Dakota, and he told me that there have been a lot of books that were written about the time period and the people, but he had not read one that had such a strong reverence for the land. And that's what my grandparents, that's what it was all about.
So you were true to their beliefs too.
Yes.
And you didn't even maybe consciously
No.
start out to write it that
No.
way, but that was you and that was them. You got it from them, you put it on paper,
Yeah.
and you stayed true to their beliefs.
I have to tell you though, there was one part I never even thought about it until afterwards. Here I'm writing this story, and the heroine in the story is engaged to one of two brothers, the younger of two brothers. Circumstances happen, she winds up pregnant by the older brother, who is really the hero of the story, the one she belongs with. But at the beginning, this is not what you think is going to happen. Well, because the story, in 80% of the story, she's pregnant, this is not a story that has a lot of sex in it. Now, that's an important thing to remember, because this is a historical romance novel, and a lot of them are very sexy.
Yeah.
This one is not. But that served me well later down the line, and I didn't realize it till later, and I thought, it's because I kept thinking of my grandmother. I couldn't write about my
really.
No,
Come on,
it's
there's
like I
just some
can't go
things
there.
You can't do.
No.
So you wrote the story.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about the ending, how you arrived at that, and how much fun that was for you.
Well, in the initial ending, a romance novel has to end on a note of hope. Doesn't have to be a marriage, doesn't have to be, well, there have been various definitions over the years, but it has to end on a note of
Yes.
hope. So the manuscript that I turned in, it did end on a note of hope. And I liked it, but I would have liked to have had the sisters get together. My editor wrote to me and said, "Why didn't you get the sisters together?" And I said, because I was a real stickler for the research.
Mm-hmm.
I really was.
Yeah.
And I said, in that time, place, and in that time, with communications, with transportation, there's no way that they would have gotten together.
Mm-hmm.
And the editor said, "I don't care how you do it, but you make it happen." I thought,
Aren't editors fun?
oh, yeah. And I thought, on one hand, great, she wants the same ending I do, but how am I going to do it? Because it just wouldn't have happened. So I got creative, and I made it happen.
But that's what we do, is
Yes.
we get creative.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about where your book is going now, why we are celebrating.
Yes, because here we are in the middle of July. This book originally was published by the Monogram imprint of HarperCollins in the mid-90s. Came out as a paperback original. Scout for Walt Disney kept that manuscript for months. They considered it. In the end, it didn't do anything with it. And my agent, when he called me to tell me that the Disney Scout was looking at it, I got all excited, and he said, "Zita, Scouts look at manuscripts like we eat peanuts.
Yeah.
Don't get excited."
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, Ron, for 6 months,
Hold up
I
on
was
the
like,
champagne.
what if? And
But
and
now we're having a rebirth
now we are.
in
because
an
now,
entirely new environment, a
Yeah.
communications environment.
And there was a time when I thought, oh, I'll only read books of an actual paper, hard book. I wouldn't be interested in one of these e-books, these newfangled things. But times have changed, and so have I. So my agent got the rights back from HarperCollins. Years go by, and now I'm looking at, there's this company out called Samhain Publishing, and I like what they're doing. And I had a friend of mine who got the rights back for a book, and she sold them to them, and then they have the rights for 7 years to bring
right.
bring it out in this new electronic form. So she had told me about her experience, had a great experience. I talked about it with my agent. He approached them, and we came up with a nice deal. And now they're bringing the book out as an electronic book. So it's having a whole new birth, and I hope new readers.
I can almost tell you from experience, you can pretty well be assured you will. It's a new environment, and it's becoming tremendously popular. There's so many devices out there that people can read on. My son, as I've told you before, is an airline pilot, spends an awful lot of downtime in ready rooms waiting to go out on whatever flight he's going to go out on, and he loves the e-books. He loves them. In his generation, that environment, they're into e-books big time. Yeah. So, I mean, I think you have a great future, a new future, a reinvented or regurgitated future, however we want to put it. Yeah, I'm seeing good things happen out there, so I'm certain for you that the interest you saw in it when it originally came out, it'll go back. It'll come back around.
Well, I'm encouraged because of the 3 books that HarperCollins published. There was Band of Gold, and then First and Forever, and Just a Miracle. And Band of Gold came out in May of this year as an ebook, and now First and Forever, and then this fall, Just a Miracle will come out. So it's like a whole new life, new format. It's a new world for publishing and
sure
for reading.
Is. It's a great new world.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that you had gone out to the Dakotas and talked with folks out there. Now, you did some actual research for the book while you were out there, correct?
Oh, I did.
Because I really want to hear, I want your viewers to hear this wonderful story you told me earlier about your research. Well, in the country towns in South Dakota.
I love these small towns. I really do. So the place that I set this little fictional town is modeled on a real town called Eureka, South Dakota. And I went to Eureka. I was out in South Dakota for a couple of weeks. It did not occur to me that I should have made arrangements or even checked to see if the library
How many
was
people
gonna be
lived in
open.
Eureka, roughly?
Oh, I would say maybe a couple thousand, maybe. Okay. Mobridge was the bigger town, 3,000, and Eureka was not as big as Mobridge. So we go out there, and my husband is with me, and my dad, who's living in South Dakota. We go to Eureka, and it turns out to be that in the summer they have very limited hours, and the day I was there, the library was closed. So I thought, okay, I can't come back.
And the library was where?
It was in the basement of the town hall.
Okay.
So, which I found that out from somebody in the diner. And of course, in this little town like this, you drive in and everybody knows every pickup.
You were in the diner, so you were in the actual hub of the town, there, where everything comes and everyone knows everyone. And
they had a special on rice pudding, and I remember that too. So they said, "Oh, well, just go over to the town hall and ask them. Maybe they can open it up for you." And I'm thinking, okay. So I went over to the town hall, talked to the town clerk, told him who I was. I'm doing this research for this book. Here's my dad, Winterberg, family from over in Mobridge, Timberlake. Really need to do some research here. And the woman said, well, I'll give the librarian a call. She's off today. So I just stood there while she called, and I heard, well, the phone rang and rang and rang. Turned the librarian was outside hanging up clothes. She said, oh, yes. She said, that's fine. The key is on the door jamb, on the top of the door jamb outside the door of the library. Just put it back there when you're finished. So the clerk got the key down. She opens up the library door. She lets me in, my dad, my husband. And I said,
I was going to say it's because you have such an honest face, but she didn't even see you.
She didn't even see me, no. And so I said, well, where's the local history section? Because you know what, in little towns, people will write their memoir, they'll write a collection of poetry, and they'll donate it to the library. Yeah. That's what I wanted. So I'm in this little area of the library, and I said, well, and where's the copy machine? Well, they don't have a copy machine. I said, oh, okay. So fortunately, I had a lot of paper with me. So I had my dad, my husband, I'm pulling out stuff, I'm reading, thank goodness I take shorthand. I'm taking down shorthand. I said to my dad, you copy this couple of paragraphs, Dick, you copy this couple of paragraphs. Next thing I know, it's 5 o'clock. There's nobody there. And I can tell that from outside in the stairwell, the lights upstairs are dark. So we just got up, made sure we just turned the lights off and pulled the door behind us, and that was it.
Did you put the key back where they told you?
Well, they put the key back, so that all I had to do was pull the door. But yeah,
they
it was great.
They didn't want to have to call the state capitol and get the police after you.
No. It was
two things. Let's talk a little bit about your cover art and about your book signing, because they are intertwined.
Yes, they are. They are. So I have to tell you, when HarperCollins first published the book, this is the old days, and they asked if I had to fill out an art sheet. And if I had a picture, could I send them a picture of what I thought the character looked like? Well, what I had done was used an anniversary book published by the little town of Timber Lake, population 500, and they created this anniversary book for 75 years of homesteading. I found a picture in there of an early homesteader. His name was Pius Aberly.
Pius Aberly.
And so I sent the art department the picture, and I said, the guy, the hero in the book, he looks like this. This is the kind of clothes he would wear. This is the kind of look. So they found a model, and yeah, that's the picture. That's Pius as a young man.
Sure.
So they found a model who looked
farmer.
like him. Yeah, Midwestern
Prairie
farmer.
guy.
Found this picture, get this guy, dress him up to look like that, and then they get a woman, and they put in the clothing, and they fudged a little on the colors, but literary license, I get it. I think it works fine. So they came up with this picture, this cover for the book. Now this is the old book, the one that is no longer available.
Mm-hmm.
But this is what the cover looked like. And if you can go back to that picture of Pius Aberly, that little newspaper picture, yeah, so there's Pius. Now take a look again at this cover. I thought they did a great job.
I think they did a great job,
They did a beautiful job. So I go out to South Dakota. Now, years go by, a book is published, I go out. I'm visiting my friends who run the Historical Society and the newspaper in Timber Lake. And I said, geez, thanks guys very much, because that, I had the book of the 75th anniversary, and I told them the story of using the picture of Pius. Now, Ron, I don't know if it's still this way or not, but in the old days, this is, back in the 90s, these little towns, they didn't have enough news to have like a daily paper, so they'd have a weekly, and one town would have Monday, another town Tuesday, another town Wednesday, and they would talk on the phone and they would share news. So I go up to the big town of Mobridge, population 300, where my dad's living, because I'm going to do a book signing there. So the night before the book signing, I get a phone call at my dad's, and it's a reporter from the local paper. She says, is it true that you used a picture, that you used Pius Aberly on your cover? And I said, well, here's how it happened. And I explained to her about the picture. She said, do you know Pius is still alive? And I said, no way. She said, and he lives here in Mobridge.
Perfect.
She said, and he's coming to your book signing tomorrow.
Oh, I bet.
I said, my God, this is the best. So I go to do the book signing. Now, there are no real bookstores. Nearest one is 100 miles to Aberdeen east or 100 miles north to Bismarck. But there is a little store there that has some health food things and some religious books and a couple things. And we got the okay from the owner and the minister's wife, because she had to read the book first and make sure it was okay. Thank goodness there wasn't a lot of sex.
You're talking small town Midwest
very
America,
small town.
Yes.
So they said it was okay. So we did the little signing there. Pius comes in. Now by this time he's a man in his 80s. And we had a great time. It was wonderful. The next day, the headline from the newspaper comes out. I have to share it with you. Okay. So here's the headline that comes out the next day. Move over, Fabio. Pius is here. Don't you love it?
That it must have made his millennium.
It did. I do think it did. Yeah, it was great. And he was a real sport.
So let's jump ahead a little bit here. We know how you got to cover. How did you develop your heroic character? This is a romance novel?
Yes.
Where did that come from?
I have to tell you, Ron, this is one of my favorite stories. So there was a time I was teaching a class on writing fiction, and I taught it at Hartford College for Women back when that existed. And back then, we were in rooms that did not have blackboards, whiteboards, so I had to improvise. So I brought an easel with me, and when I wanted to demonstrate something, I would use poster paper. So I made a poster that I was teaching the class about creating a heroic character. Now this is the actual poster, flimsy and all beaten up and everything else, but the poster itself said, make him attempt, because we're talking the heroic character in a romance novel, make him attempt the impossible, the forbidden, the unattainable, the disastrous. Now, remember those. I leave class one day. I pile all my stuff in the trunk of the car, including this poster, sitting right in the trunk of the car. I come home and I said to Dick, we have to go to the store. We have to run up to the store before they close, the little Highland Park Market in Manchester. So we go to the store, and at Highland Park, one of the things I love about that store is they have these young people who come and carry your groceries out to the car.
I shop there.
I love that store. So this young man comes out, I've got groceries, I pop open the trunk, he takes one bag, and he reaches over to put it into the trunk. And here's this poster. And he looks, he puts the bag down. He gets another bag and he brings it over, and he's looking, and he puts the bag in the trunk. Gets the third bag, comes over, and he puts it in the trunk. And then he looks up at my husband, who is standing there, doesn't say a word. Kid looks up at my husband, and Dick, without a stop, says, "It's not easy being married to her."
I can see that happening without any trouble whatsoever.
I love it. It was a good story.
So, where are your viewers going to find the new copy of your book?
Well, Samhain Publishing, you can certainly get it there. You'll be able to go any of the bookstores, where you can order something as an ebook. And then on my own website, thezitachristian.com, there will be an excerpt posted there. So it's available. It's just it's a different way of thinking about how to get a book. And I just want to be sure we showed the cover for the new book. See, this is the new edition.
Okay, there you go.
Very different from the old one, but in this one, the hero he's portraying what he looked like before he went out to Homestead, because he was from a very prominent family in Missouri. And
you've arrived, don't you? Just by that cover. Because your name is as big as the title.
Yes.
You love that.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. I met the cover artist at a writer's conference in the elevator. And we all had our name tags and stuff on. I didn't see hers, but she saw mine. And crowded elevator, and she said, I just did your cover. And I said, no, Kim, I'm thinking Kim Killian did my cover. But I'd never met Kim Killian. I didn't know what she looked like. So I looked over, and there's her badge, Kim Killian. I said, oh my gosh. So she explained, she talked to me how they did it and the clothing they used, and it's fascinating. So, and I love the cover. I think it's beautiful.
I think so too, and I think you've got a really great second life on your book here.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, just from what I'm seeing, my own children and grandchildren, e-books. That's the way. I still like to hold a book in my hand.
I do too. Yeah.
Sit on the couch, in the evening and read. Turn the pages. They see things a little differently.
They do,
and that's great. That's great. It opens up a new environment. Zita, thank you very much for allowing me to share this good time with you.
Thank you.
I learned a lot about your book and a lot about what went into it, and I wish you the very best of luck.
Thank you.
In the new release.
Thanks very much.
Oh,
and it was always a joy having you on too. And so I do want to thank you in the viewing audience. My thanks to Ron for helping me tell you about First and Forever. And I love to close with the words of the fantasy writer Ursula Le Guin, who said, "There have been civilizations that did not use the wheel, but there have been no civilizations that did not tell stories. So find your story, find a way to tell it, and do join me again next time." Thank you.
Food for the crew and guests is provided by Manchester Grill of Manchester, Connecticut, and Angelo's Restaurant of Glastonbury, Connecticut. We welcome your comments and suggestions. Please email Zita at zitatv.com or write to Zita Christian, Page 1 TV, P.O. Box 1515, Manchester, Connecticut, 06045-1515. You can watch this and other episodes of Page 1 on youtube.com/Zita3x3.